So you're considering taking student loans, but you don't even know what to expect. You don't know how the process works. You don't know when you get the cash. You don't know how disbursement happens. You don't know how payment typically works. In today's video, I'll share with you everything you need to know about taking student loans from beginning, from knowing nothing to actually feeling like you're making an informed decision for yourself. So let's jump right into today's video. So we can summarize the entire student loan process into 3 stages, and that's what I'll be talking about in today's video. First is the application stage, the second is the disbursement stage, and the third is the repayment stage. And I will start with the application stage. So the application stage involves you going to the student loan site. I've mentioned a couple of options on this channel, so go to their website and create a profile for yourself. If you're interested in Prodigy Finance, I have a link in the description, and you guys already know that Prodigy Finance gives a lot of like international students loans, and you don't need to have a co-signer for you to use Prodigy Finance, and that's the most beautiful part of it for me. So if you're interested in Prodigy, there's a link in the description. But this first phase, this first stage that I call the application stage, just requires you to go to the student loan provider's website, create a profile, and then begin the application process. I have done a couple of walkthrough videos where I go through the process of applying online for all the 3 big options that fund international students without co-signers. So those options that I've mentioned on this channel, the biggest, Prodigy. So those are the 3 big options, and I have done walkthrough videos for each one of them. I'll link them in the description. If you want to start the process and you want someone to just show you exactly how, watch those videos for each of those options. So in stage 1, you go to their website, you create a profile, and you begin the application process. Now, also in this stage, you have to upload some documents. They will ask you for some things like your credit report, some of them, not all, but some of them will ask you for your credit report. They will ask for like your passport number. They will ask for things around like your identification. They will ask you for like the school you got into, all of those things. So be ready to upload the documents. If you're curious about like what documents they'll need, I have done a video where I tell you the main documents any student loan provider will want you to upload, and I'll link that video, but you can also like Google it and find it. So you need to be ready to upload those documents, and at the end of this stage 1, you will submit an application. So you've created a profile, you've entered all your information, and you've uploaded all the documents they asked for. Those are the 3 big things you need to do in this stage. So now you have submitted the application. That's the major milestone for this stage of the whole student loan process. So now that you've submitted the application, it is now out of your hands, okay? You've submitted the application, it is now in the hands of the student loan provider or the bank. Now that you've submitted, they will get back to you after a couple of weeks, maybe shorter. They'll get back to you and say your application has been approved, yay! Or they'll get back to you and say your application was denied. If your application was denied, this sadly is the end of the process for you. But don't be discouraged, because I can share with you how you can reapply and get your application to be approved. So I've done a couple of those videos. But if you were rejected and you want to know why, you want to get my opinion on that, just put a comment in the comment section. I'll get to it. Ask me any kind of questions and I'll get to it. But if your application was denied, that's the end, except you reapply. But we can talk about that later. Now, if your application was approved, that's so great. If your application was approved, they will send you a loan agreement. Now, this contains everything you need to know about your student loans, what you can do, what you can't do, just everything, the interest rate, the terms, everything. So they'll send you the loan agreement. And once they send you the loan agreement, you can do 2 things. You can either accept or decline. Now, if you decline, that's the end of the process. That means you don't want to take student loans with that loan provider, and that's the end. Or if you accept, then once you click accept after you've read all the terms, and please make sure you read the most important terms in that agreement. I did a video recently where I share with you the most important terms you should look out for in your loan agreement, and I'll link that video. Please watch it so you don't make mistakes so many people make. So now you've accepted the terms of that loan. then they will send you some proof that they will be funding you. And this proof, this loan proof, is what you can use as your proof of funds when you're applying for your visa. You can send it to your school to show how you'll be funding your education. You can send it as part of your visa documents that you want to send to the consulate or the embassy. That's how it works. That letter they provide after you've signed is the letter you need to show proof to whoever is asking, whether that's your school or whether that's your embassy or consulate. That's the letter you use as your proof of funds. So that's the end of the first stage of the student loan process, which is the application stage. Once you sign that agreement and get that letter from them, that ends the application stage for you. So let's talk about stage 2 or phase 2, which is actually the stage where the loan provider sends the cash to the school. So here, what happens is, say you're borrowing a total of $40,000 and you have you're going for a 2-year program, and each year has 2 semesters. That means you have a total of 4 semesters to complete your program. Now you're borrowing $40,000 and you have 4 semesters. What happens is, at the beginning of each semester, the loan provider, say at the beginning of semester 1, right before school starts, the loan provider is going to send you an email and say something like, "Hey, Doing, we're sending $10,000 to your school. Please confirm that you're fine with this." Now they will send that, or some loan provider will send you a link and say, "Click this link and go tell us how much you want us to send to your school." It's $40,000 divided by the 4 semesters. That's $10,000 every semester. Now, once you click the link, or once you confirm that they can send the money to your school, the loan provider, right before classes start, will send $10,000 to your school. Now, this is where I get a lot of questions. Many of you are like, "Hey, will they send me some of this money? How will I cover my living expenses?" Yeah, let's get into it. So they will send you $10,000 to your school, and then let's say your total tuition and fees for that semester were, say, $6,000. What happens is, the loan provider will send $10,000 to your school. And then after some weeks or so, your school is going to email you and say, "Doing, we received $10,000 from your loan provider, but your total tuition and fees for this semester is $6,000. What would you want us to do with the $4,000? Could you provide some bank details for where we should send that money, or do you want us to mail you a check?" That's the email your school is going to send you at the end of their reconciliation for that period. Now, you will provide your bank details to the school, and the school will send you $4,000. Out of the $10,000, they've taken $6,000 to cover your tuition and fees for that semester, and then they will send $4,000 to you. Now, a lot of you ask me, "Will the loan provider send me some of that money to use for my living expenses?" No. Loan providers barely ever, they almost never send you any cash. Listen to that again. Loan providers almost never send you any cash. What they will do is send everything to your school, and then you will do the reconciliation with your school. Your school will reach out after the loan provider sends the cash, and then your school will give you whatever balance you have left. So that's how it works. There's nothing like you getting $4,000 from the loan provider and then the loan provider sending $6,000 to the school. They're going to send everything as one transaction to your school, and then your school will reimburse you. So that's your school will send you the balance. So that's how it works, and then you can decide what you want to do with the $4,000, whether you want to pay rent or you want to use it for feeding and transportation. Whatever that is, the loan provider sends to the school sends to you. That's how it works. And the moment they send this cash to the school, from that moment, from that day, you begin to incur interest. There's nothing like, "Oh, can I not have interest while I'm in school?" You will incur interest from that day they send to the school. Likely the case, but this is one of the things they would have stated in your loan agreement. So make sure you read your loan agreement well. You will incur interest. Now, does that mean you have to start paying that day or the next day? No. And we'll talk about that when we get to stage 3. But from day 1, you will incur interest. If you borrow $10,000 for that semester, by the next day after they sent it to the school, you no longer owe $10,000. You owe $10,000 and something, like your interest. So that's how this stage works. All right, so let's talk about stage 3, and this is the repayment, the part that gives a lot of people a lot of anxiety. So this is phase 3, and this is where you need to repay the loans, because you have to repay. Once you get a loan, you need to think about how you pay back. So this is stage 3. Now, one thing I mentioned at the beginning in stage 1 is you need to read the terms of your loan agreement. And I shared with you that I've done videos where I tell you the exact terms you need to really look out for. One of those terms is grace period. However, they might use different terminologies, but grace period is something you need to look out for in stage 1, or something you needed to have looked out for. Now, what happens in the grace period? You've graduated now, but some people don't have to start paying right after graduation. There are some loan providers, typically they give you some grace period and say, hey, let's say you graduate today. You do not have to pay back until you need to start paying back 6 months after graduation. Some will say the day you graduate, you need to start paying back. Some will say while you're in school, you need to start paying back. All of these things depend on what your loan provider included in your loan agreement. So let's say yours is the type that has a grace period. Grace period basically means we're giving you grace to not pay anything for this period while you settle. That's like all it is. So what happens here is the loan, you've taken loans, you are about graduating. If you have a 6-month grace period, let's say you graduated in June, that means you don't have to start paying until like end of December. That's what grace period means, and a lot of providers give grace period, but you need to check for that. If you have a grace period, you don't have to pay back. Now, does that mean you won't incur interest for that period? No, you would incur interest. You've been incurring interest like since day one. Since the first day they sent any cash to your school, you started incurring interest. So we're not debating interest. Interest is always there. We're debating when you start paying. Now, if you have a grace period of 6 months, you don't have to pay. You don't have to start making your instrumental payments until after the grace period. Now, if you want to pay during the grace period, that's fine, but you don't have to pay. Like, you're not in default if you don't pay within that period. That's how it works. Now, let's get to the question of, do I have to pay the entire loan amount at once? Say you borrowed $40,000. That's the example we've been using. You don't have to pay $40,000 at once. One of the things you needed to have checked out in stage 1 is, how, like the term, like the tenure of that loan, or the term. Basically, many student loans, they usually have a tenure of like 10 to 25 years. So what that means is by the time you start paying back, you can pay over 10 to 25 years, whatever is stated in your own loan. For many loans I tried, then I think it was 15 years for one, it was 20 years for one. So what that means is you will pay back the entire loan and interest within 20 years. That's the implication of that. If yours takes 5 years, that means you must pay back within 5 years. I think mine, the one quorum that I eventually went with, was 15 years at the time. But you can decide to pay up earlier, but I'll come to that. So you need to know what the tenure of that loan is. So is it something with a the term is like 10 years or 15 years or 20 years? So you don't have to pay the $40,000 back at once. No, that's not how it works. You need to pay. Every month. For the amount they'll tell you owe every month is basically the entire loan amount and interest spread over the 20 years. So you don't need to pay at once. You pay in installments every month. Another thing you needed to have looked out for at the beginning is the penalties, and I've talked about this in many videos. Any kind of penalties for early payment. Some loan providers don't want you to pay up early because you don't make a lot of interest if you pay up early. But some providers are like, we're fine with you paying up early. In fact, they encourage you to pay early. Now, the one I had, there was no penalty for paying early, and that's why I was able to say, hey, I want to pay this up early. Now, you can pay up early if you want, provided it doesn't negate anything you signed when you were signing your loan agreement. So you can decide to pay up early, maybe within 1 year, within 2 years. You can do that. But many times you can actually take your time and pay back within 15 years or within 20 years. If you want to know how I paid back my $100,000 in student loans, I've done a couple of videos about sharing about that experience. I also link them in the description so you can learn from my own experience on how to pay back. But don't worry, well, you should worry because paying loans is a lot. But I also share some tips that helped me pay back. So check out those videos if you're curious about paying back student loans. Okay, so that's the entire process of applying for student loans and getting this, getting the cash and paying back. So that's everything. But I know you still have questions. So if you have questions, you can ask me in the comments. But another thing you can do is join my email list, and I will be hosting some office hours or sessions where you can just drop in on Zoom and just ask me any kind of questions. So if you're interested in, you have more personal questions or your case is very different, just join my email list. I always share tips there, and I also organize some of these sessions where you can ask me anything. So join the list and also continue to ask your questions below, and I'll get to them. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.